Controlling reality with your mind. If you literally could control reality with your mind, you'd basically be God at that point, right? So why is it something that I consider to be relatively overblown in general? I want to give you guys a little bit more of a pragmatic approach to this stuff because I think that when we understand what it means to create reality with your mind, or really understand the actual implications of the steps that people in the manifestation space talk about, this is stuff that is more applicable to a larger group of people. And I think that a lot of the times these kinds of narratives or the classification that, hey, manifestation is only for people that, use stones or write affirmations or call themselves a witch or whatever it is, I think that we're isolating a lot of really, really important information and frankly, some of the most self-empowering information that exists out there. So if you're into motivation psychology, right? If you're into any kind of self-development, self-empowerment information, this is gonna be very, very applicable for you, right? That's the goal, is to make this accessible to everybody. This isn't some kind of, cult following information that I'm trying to put out there. I'm trying to take stuff that has really benefited me in my life and give it to you in a way that you don't have to try to formulate a sense of belief around it. So in any area that you are trying to improve, you really need three things. Number one is the mindset. You need a mindset that is in alignment with it, whatever it is that you want to achieve. If you are trying to pursue fitness goals, the way that you think about, your diet, the way that you think about fitness, the way that you think about rest, all of these things are going to completely change if you're going from a place of a person that is out of shape. Say, for example, you are overweight, right? And you are trying to lose weight and get a handle on your diet. Mindset is the first step. Having a radical shift of the state of being that you embody, a radical shift really of who you expect yourself to be. This is the first step. And this is for anything. If you're trying to, form a great relationship, if you're trying to find a life partner, right? This is the first step, is to change your mindset. And we'll talk a little bit more about details as the video goes on. Now, step number two is strategy, having an A to Z plan that you're going to follow. Now, this is one of those places that we are right out of the gate gonna start to kind of differ from a lot of the new age spiritual teachings that say, hey, you need to, come up with what it is that you want. But then once you know, and once you are resonating with that place, you don't need to take any action. Now, here's what I would say to that, right? Action is the speech of the soul, right? Action is your inner compass trying to create results. And I think a lot of the time when we limit ourselves, and again, for those of you that are not into any kind of new age spirituality, this is probably not going to apply to you, but for those of you that have been practicing manifestation or want to become a practitioner of manifestation, there's going to be a lot of talk about how you should avoid taking action. Now, you can do that. And if that's what you believe, if you believe you don't have to take any action, cool. I'm not here to challenge that. What I am here to say is that you are going to naturally want to take action, right? And if you resist that desire to take action, you will find yourself facing a inner turmoil of part of you wants to take action, but this dogma that you've applied, that you've subscribed to is saying, no, don't take any action, and you're gonna have this little tussle inside. So what I would say is that try to just let some of this information wash over you, right? Try to just listen to what I'm saying as I try to convince you or just try to kind of put information in front of you saying that desire to take action is the speech of the soul. It is your soul trying to, bring about this new state of being that you've imagined. And strategy is what that action is. And so if we can optimize, what our actions are going to be, we're going to be far, far ahead of the people that are just kind of, doing it on a whim. Now, I'm not saying that flow is a bad thing. I'm not saying that you should not listen to your intuition. What I am saying is that when you have structure in place, you don't have to rely on these, fallible human emotions, right? A lot of us, we want to have this sense of flow and this sense of natural, innate desire to make things happen. But as we start to follow that process, we're going to face the ups and downs of our energy, right? We are humans, and inevitably we're gonna have highs and inevitably we're gonna have lows. Now, the great thing about having a strategy, or as some people might call it, discipline, right? A war map in place that is going to happen whether you want it to happen or not. You no longer have to worry about this up and down roller coaster, right? You can rely on a plan and a series of steps that you can take no matter how you feel. So that's number 2. And then finally, number 3 is accountability, right? So having a community, having a coach, whoever it is, that's going to help hold you accountable to the goals that you have and keep you moving through those steps, whether you feel like it or not. Again, strategy and accountability kind of go hand in hand. These are the structures of discipline. Discipline is the machine that guarantees success because it is not reliant on the highs and the lows and the changing of the winds that is your desire, that is your inner state of motivation and passion. These are the 3 things that you need to succeed. Now, how does that tie into, manifesting, or how does that tie into creating reality with your mind? Like I said, I'm trying to come at you guys with a pragmatic approach. I'm trying to come at you guys with a strategy, or really a set of check boxes that you can do no matter if you believe in manifestation, no matter if you really understand a lot about motivation psychology. It doesn't matter. This is going to resonate with you if you just listen to it and imagine yourself going through the steps that I lay out. So we've talked a little bit about, creating reality with your mind, why that there's some stigma behind it. Now let's talk about why you would want to do this at all. And if you're asking that question from the perspective of like, that's a little bit overpowered, right? That's a little bit too much say in the grand scheme of reality. Wouldn't that basically make me God? Now, if you're asking that from a genuinely humble perspective, I just want to shout you out because that says a lot about you. That says a lot about your character. And I think that's a great thing that you're asking this question of like, this is too much power for one person to have. Now, if you're asking that question from the perspective of, look, well, if it was that easy, why wouldn't everybody do it? Well, everybody is doing it, right? Look around. Everybody is, whether they are doing it directly or indirectly, creating the reality that they exist in. Listen to the way that people speak, right? If you listen to the way that people speak and you can listen from a genuine place of awareness, you will find that people are creating the situations around them based on fears, based on doubts, based on indecision, right? There's a lot of procrastination going on. There's a lot of people that have big goals, but they don't follow those goals up with big action. Now, that might be because their external circumstances are extremely oppressive. And we don't want to look over those people and say like, you're just a victim. At the end of the day, a lot of these situations do in fact exist. What we want to recognize, however, is there any inherent power that we have, right? And when we try to take on as much responsibility as we possibly can, we will notice more and more arenas where we can change. And a lot of that is going to come down to the way that we think. A lot of that is going to come down to the way that we view possibility, view opportunity, and then view ourselves in that, in that scene of being able to take on that opportunity. We as human beings are programmed to be doubters, right? We are programmed to be survivalists. But in 2023, the problem with being programmed for physical survival is that a lot of us, probably the vast majority of you watching this video, have a certain amount of survival-based guarantees, right? You can probably guarantee that you'll be able to afford food for a foreseeable amount of time. You can probably guarantee that you'll be able to, have a roof over your head for a foreseeable amount of time. The majority of the challenges that most of us face are environmental challenges. They are career-based challenges, relationship-based challenges, health-based challenges. But a lot of it, frankly, if we're being honest again, comes back down to choice. We are choosing comfort primarily. We're choosing comfort. We are choosing anything that is, avoiding physical struggle. But part of the problem with that is that a lot of achievement nowadays, if you want to achieve more than the run-of-the-mill individual, the average Joe or Jane, you have to do more, right? You have to dream bigger. You have to be willing to take more risks. And this is where the idea of creating reality with your mind comes in, right? Is because if you shut those doors before you even try to walk through them, there is no possibility. If you look at the dream that you have and say, well, it's not going to happen because of this, this, and this, you're probably right? And even if you did still believe that it was possible, a lot of the narrative that you're creating is inherently limiting, right? It's creating an emotional block between you and where you want to go. If you fear that, another room is full of monsters, you're not even going to walk through and check, right? If you've already convinced yourself that it's full of monsters, but maybe you could defeat those monsters, right? Maybe they're not actually there at all, right? And these little willingness to take risks, this is, the simplicity of the kind of change that you can make. So ultimately what I'm trying to portray to you guys is that any kind of change, any kind of transformation that you want to go through in life is identity based, right? There is a shift of identity that has to happen before you can even begin to take the actions, right? Before you can even begin to go out and try to fail. So what are the actual steps, right? When it comes to creating your reality, what does that actually look like? So step one is to know what you want. Now, every single school, whether it's a metaphysical school, whether it's a motivation psychology based school, stoicism, doesn't matter. They're all going to say that when it comes to achieving anything, the first thing that you need is a strong intention, right? You need to set a strong intention that is the thing that you want and you are going to go get it. Now, from there, what's going to happen is you're going to need to exist as if. You're going to need to walk and talk and act and think as though you are already a person that has achieved these things. Why? Well, because that person is naturally in that state, right? That person is expecting to have achieved those things. That person already has the skills and the capabilities. And even though you might not right now, you are setting the expectation and then following it up with strong action as possible by living in that identity state, right? There is going to be a whole lot less inner questioning, a whole lot less inner turmoil if you say, I have already identified with a person that comes out on the other side having achieved this thing, right? And so I am much more willing to go through the hardships because, well, that must be how it goes, right? That just must be part of the journey because it's happening to me and I am somebody that has and will achieve what it is that I want. Now, if you're an action taker, you already know that this is working. You already know that this probably will lead you to success. If you have practiced visualization just in the moment, right? If you practiced imagining what it is that you want and imagining what you would be like had you achieved that thing, right? You can already feel your thoughts changing. You can already start to see yourself taking different action. Where I differ from a lot of the kind of new age spiritual people is that I think that this is the easy part. I think that imagining what you want and, seeing yourself having it and, trying to start to kind of come up with what those habits are and, start to see yourself taking the better action and actually start to go out and take the better action. This is generally the easier part. I know that a lot of people say, hey, the first step is always the hardest. Getting off the couch is the hardest. It's hard, right? And if you're not in a place where you've done any of that, if you're just kind of looking to break out of this depression or whatever it is that you're in, that's a great first step, right? Just imagining, writing some of those habits down and actually going out and taking action. Here's what I would say. The hard part is in the reflection, right? Step 3 is to reflect. It's to, analyze the results that you've gotten and then try to optimize, try to go out and take better action now that you've analyzed the results. This is really what I would consider to be the hard part, right? All of us innately are very creative beings. We are very capable beings. We have the greatest, supercomputer sitting between our shoulders that's ever existed in the history of the universe, right? We are incredibly capable, every single one of us. But what we're held back by is fear, right? Doubt and indecision. If you've ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, you know exactly where those 3 came from. But I think that that's the biggest challenge, is getting out of our own way, right? And so practicing visualization on a regular basis, right? Practicing, going through the steps, imagining what you want to achieve, and then seeing the steps in your mind's eye as you go through those steps, right? As you take those actions. Incredibly powerful stuff, and I highly recommend that you incorporate this into your daily routine because you will become a much, much higher achieving person if you do. Now, the challenge is in the shadow work, right? The challenge is in what happens as I start to go through these steps and I start to face my limitations, right? I start to, viscerally see right in front of me all of these insecurities that I have, right? Like that I do start going to the gym, but man, I feel so inadequate. I feel so weak compared to everybody here. Or I do go out and, try to get those first clients for my business, but I feel so inadequate. I feel so like I have this imposter syndrome or whatever it is, right? This is the real challenge. And so step 3 is what I would just sum up as shadow work. If you've ever heard of the concept of shadow work is quite literally bringing the unconscious mind to the surface, right? So there's this idea that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And in order to change your identity, you want to rewire your subconscious mind because that is what your automatic behaviors are manifesting from, right? If deep down you believe that you are, a top level, whatever it is, a top level professional in your industry, you're gonna behave as if that's the case. You're gonna go out with more confidence, you're gonna do more outreaches, you're gonna do more networking, and you're going to perform higher quite simply because you expect that you are proficient in that area. Now, if the opposite is the case, right, you're gonna start behaving as if that's the case. You're gonna go through a lot of what you do from a place of insecurity. You're gonna feel like if you reach out to people, you're begging, right? If you want to, go join in some competition, you're inherently inferior to the other candidates in the competition, and you're probably not gonna perform as well, quite simply because there's that inner limiting factor that you have imposed on yourself. So how do we fix that? Well, we fix it with shadow work, bringing these feelings to the top of our awareness. And we can do this through journaling. We can do this just by, consciously noticing, hey, this is something that I'm doing. When I was really deep into this process, I was just writing into my phone. I had a note in my phone, and every time I experienced a limiting belief, right? Every time I experienced some feeling of emotional disempowerment, I would write it down. And what's helpful when you do this is to write it down where you are, right? Write down the situation, what happened, write down how it made you feel, right? And then as you start to kind of build up this database of all of this information about yourself, you can start to reflect and you can start to read back, and you'll see similarities based on location, based on interactions with certain types of people, interactions within certain situations. Now, the beautiful thing is that as you start to do this, if you have a strong level of awareness, if you are a very courageous person, which I highly recommend all of you try to be if you're watching this video, because this is really the key to making any of this happen for you, is to be bold. You want to figure out, what did I want to feel, right? If I can go back into this situation that was disempowering for me, what did I want to feel? What would have been the optimal state of being, right? And can I go back in my mind's eye, relive this experience, but from a new state of being? Now, applicably, right? The way that you apply this, the way that you do this. Of course, like I said, notice when these things are happening. But then when you want to go in and rewire it, what I recommend that you do is find yourself in a comfortable position, in a calm environment. You can be seated, you can be lying down, you can be standing, it doesn't really matter. But you want to get yourself as calm as possible, right? Then what you want to do is bring up that disempowering scene. Bring yourself back, physically stand or sit or whatever it is that you were doing in that moment. Relive that moment, but from that place of calm. And what I want you to do is try to reintroduce the emotion of empowerment. Try to reintroduce the emotion of confidence, and see if you can relive that experience from a place that you were empowered. As time goes on, and as you practice this on a regular basis, you will start to notice that in these moments when you experience disempowerment, your automatic responses will start to shift towards a place of calm confidence. It really is that simple, but it's the practice that's actually going to get you the results, right? Any process mentally, spiritually, emotionally, a lot of these things on the surface are extremely simple. They're extremely easy to grasp the actual technique of how to do it. The problem becomes if you're not willing to practice, right? If the first time that you go to play piano and you suck and you're just like, I suck at piano, right? You're never gonna go play piano again. Well, the bottom line is that to become proficient at piano, you have to suck for a long period of time before you reach the level of being, a novice and then ultimately becoming an adept level practitioner, an expert, right? I would say that mental, emotional practices are the exact same way, and potentially even harder because you have all of these layers of preconditioning that you have to undo, right? Relearn, right? Recondition yourself to be somebody that has a completely different sense of how you react to things in the moment. But if you do commit yourself to practicing this, I promise the results will be insane. I mean, there is nothing that you cannot achieve. There is nothing that you cannot create for yourself if you are willing to put in the work and if you are willing to believe that you have the capacity to do it. So let's just run back over these steps. Number one, know what it is that you want. Be intentional and believe that you can have it, right? See it in your mind's eye and actually decide that this is something that you are willing to do the work to achieve. Number two, is try to live as if, right? Imagine yourself going through the motions, living in that life. What are the habits that you are carrying out on a regular basis, right? What are the actions that you're taking? How are your thoughts different? How do you feel different in these various situations, right? See that, believe that, imagine that. Now, the applicable way to do this is to maybe first thing in the morning or first thing right before you go to bed. They say that if you do it right before you go to bed, imagining yourself really being in that moment, you are really solidifying those, neural pathways to identify with that person. And then overnight, you essentially get to let that new hardwiring really solidify. Now, first thing in the morning, the vast majority of us, when we wake up, we pick up a phone, you flip on the iPad and start scrolling through Reddit or something like that. You're taking in all of this external information and surrounding yourself with that. Now, what does that mean? Well, number one, you're prioritizing something else. Maybe you're prioritizing something that's happening somewhere else in the world. Maybe you're prioritizing some celebrity's life. But whatever it is that you're doing, you're essentially telling your subconscious, hey, this information is more important than me, right? It's more important than my goals. It's more important than the intentions that I'm setting for the day. And so let's flip that on its head, right? Start the day out by setting intentions for the day, right? Imagining what projects that you're going to do, how they go. Imagining, various interactions that you're going to have, how they would go in the most ideal situation. What you're doing here is you are preparing yourself to feel good, but you're also preparing yourself for those moments and setting the intention of how you want to act in those moments. How you act is how the world reacts, and that is what is going to create whatever it is that you want to create for yourself, right? So first thing in the morning, that is one of the best places. Right before you go to bed, that's also one of the best places. Beyond that, just every moment that you have these interactions in your mind. We are all constantly, whatever it's arguing with people or imagining things that are going to happen. What if every time something like that happened, you tried to imagine the best case scenario? This is another way to really make this something that works really well for you. Now, as it pertains to reflection, right? Because we talked about how naturally you are this, happy, creative, passionate being, but the expectations, the laws of society, these kinds of things have limited you. They have put you into a box of what you expect you really can do, based on, your human life and other examples of other humans that you've had, right? So the biggest thing that you're going to have to do is wrestle with your fears, your doubts, and your indecision. And so journaling about this stuff is probably the best way to do that. Now, like I talked about earlier, I've done this, infinitesimal different ways. I've done this so many different ways, but one of the most effective ways and probably the most straightforward way that I can give to you guys right now is just a phone, right? It's a notes app on your phone, and every time that you experience some kind of disempowerment, whether that's a self-imposed disempowerment, whether that's you being like, oh, you know what, I doubt that this could happen, I feel inferior compared to this other person, or it's an external world disempowerment, right? It's, I did not get the promotion. She, XYZ girl, decided to go out with somebody else and has rejected me, right? Write these things down as well, because you feel some type of way about them. And that feeling is a limiting factor for you, right? If you can release from that feeling, you are going to open up so many doors for yourself, right? As soon as somebody rejects you, that is only an opportunity for you to look to the millions of other people, right, that you could potentially be in a relationship with. If you are trying to, get in great shape and you have a bad day and all of a sudden you find yourself binging on quote unquote bad food again, that's okay. That's what humans do, right? You are fallible to these emotions. And the only way that you're going to get control over this is by being aware of that, right? Placing a strict, scrutinizing awareness on that and not just letting that moment be something that slips away and you don't worry about it and you say, you know what, we'll just try again tomorrow. Totally try again tomorrow. But right now in this moment, hold yourself accountable. This kind of accountability is what is going to transform you. Now, when it comes to deeper shadow work, right? Most people, when they think of shadow work, they're thinking about like really deep trauma type of work. And that is what you probably should think about, because these kinds of massive events, right? Whether it's, we're not even gonna give examples, right? If you've had a massive event that has led you to hold on to a deep trauma, this is probably one of the most important things that you need to work on, because until you go back, relive those experiences, work with those experiences so they're no longer triggering, you are never going to have the opportunity to be free, right? There's always going to be things that remind you of that bring that energy back up for you. And that's what you really have to deal with. So if you guys want some more videos about shadow work in the future, please let me know. Without further ado, my friends, I hope this video was helpful. I hope this kind of created some nuance around the idea of creating reality with your mind, And if you're not somebody that believes in a lot of these spiritual concepts, I hope this kind of gave you an idea of how this stuff could still be, highly useful for you. Whether you believe it or not, as you start to put this stuff into practice, right? As you start to, sit with these triggering experiences, right? Analyze your disempowering emotions. You are going to get so much value if you're willing to commit yourself to this. So don't be too, whatever it is, dogmatic about this stuff and like, oh, this is all idealistic. It's not, right? It's not. This stuff, so many people swear by this stuff because it works, and they don't have to believe in jack shit. If you see the results, there's nothing to believe in. It just is. It's a law, right? So go out and apply it. See if it's something that can resonate with you, actually going out and putting it into action. But if there's anything in regards to any of this stuff that you guys want to see more of, please drop a comment. Let me know. I love making videos for you guys. And you got this. Don't beat yourself up. It's a long process. Usually it is challenging, but it is one of the most worthwhile processes any of us could ever invest our time and energy into. And so without further ado, best of luck. Really, good luck to you. So much love. Namaste. If you need anything, let me know. Peace. See you later. Bye-bye.